Peace, infinite waters, diving deep once again. We have a very special guest joining us today, a dear brother, Lenon Honor. Lenon Honor is a writer, musician, video producer, talk show host, and counselor. His website, www.lennonhonor.com, has provided a wealth of information and inspiration in regards to manhood, fatherhood, spirituality, positive relationships, subliminal manipulation, marriage, the entertainment industry, children, family, and personal growth. Welcome. Because we are going to dive deep today. And the main topic we are going to discuss is overcoming childhood circumstances and manifesting a greater reality for future generations. Let's dive right into it. No time to waste. How did it all start out for you?
Well, it's been a day by day journey, and it continues to this day. And I know we talked about this before, just the journey of life and how we're presented with certain challenges. And as we overcome those challenges, we continue to grow. And as we continue to grow, we develop the wisdom that allows us to create a greater reality. And that's what my wife and I in particular, we're trying to do, and we are doing for our children.
Wonderful, wonderful. You've been doing this for a long time and it's inspirational. A lot of us, we might be in situations where we blame our childhood for where we are today. What do you say to these kinds of people who can't get past their childhood and are bitter and angry?
Well, that the answer, well, first, that being angry and bitter is understandable because I've been there too. But that the answer ultimately comes in realizing that healing is necessary. Anger really comes out of a lack of healing. So even if someone like upsets someone and someone gets angry, well, when someone upsets you, you can decide to heal that condition of anger in that moment or shortly after that moment. It's okay to feel that. But ultimately, that there's healing that needs to take place in order to let that go. So one of the things that I've had to do in my life is to let go of a lot of the anger that I felt. And in order to do that, I've had to heal. And so healing becomes a central theme for those of us who maybe perhaps were born into difficult childhood circumstances, or maybe even those of us who are currently in difficult circumstances that we would like to overcome.
And you had the famous sentence, "I want my vision back." And we can apply this in creating and manifesting a greater reality for future generations. How has this helped you in becoming the greatest version of yourself?
Yes, I remember I came up with that. It was a sign, and it said, "I
Right.
want vision back," and I was holding it like this. And this was when I was doing my documentary work. And during that time, I was looking at different aspects of manipulation that's present, in particular in media, advertising, subliminal messages, the entertainment industry, movies, music, and doing analysis of those things because I was trying to understand why it was that so many of us on the planet are and were unhappy. And one of the things that I realized was that one of the reasons why we have been unhappy, and I'm using myself as an example too, because I've been there, was because of a lot of the manipulation that takes place coming from media. A lot of the toxic substance, I guess you can say media substances, a lot of the toxic programming that we get from media, a lot of the programming that causes us to have low self-esteem, low self-value, causes us to not necessarily appreciate other people, this type of thing. And there's a lot of manipulation out there like that. So part of what I was getting at with the I want my vision back was I wanted to be able to see what the manipulation was so that I can begin to overcome it. That was like the first level. But then there was another level to that. And that was when I began to realize that I wanted my vision back so that I can see beyond not only the manipulation that was external, but also look within and see what was it that I was doing to myself that was causing me to be unhappy. That's the true challenge. It's easy to say, look and think about what other people are doing to us to make us unhappy. But the deeper challenge and the more difficult challenge is to look within and say, what am I doing to myself that's causing me this level of unhappiness? And for most of my life, I was unhappy. And what I decided to do at a certain point was I began to transition from dealing with topics, dealing with the external manipulation and those things that from the external that may cause unhappiness in my life and in other people's life, and begin to look at what I was doing to myself to make myself unhappy. And one of the things I began to do was to ask the question, what is my orientation to my life experience? You know, am I someone who is empowered, or am I someone who is merely a victim? And the victim mentality is something that a lot of us struggle with, and a lot of us, we develop that victim mentality based upon our childhood experiences and things that we were born into. But I have a saying that there are things that we're born into, there are things that we overcome, there are things that we become, and then there are things that we are becoming. And so long as we're continuing that process, that evolutionary process, we will continue to become something greater. And in my life, that is what I aspire to become. I want to become something greater, not just for myself, for my children, for my wife, and for those that I seek to help in life.
Right. And how has meditation helped you in manifesting a greater reality? Because many of us, I've seen along my journey, people who meditate a lot can let go of the past trauma. What are some of the other tools we can also use? I know you are a fabulous musician. I see you playing the flute and I'm like, wow, you should continue playing because it's inspirational and it's so harmonious when you're playing it, and it's almost as if you are creating a perfect balance, a perfect homeostasis. Many of us, when we are in disarray, we don't do that. So what are some of the tools we can use in becoming the greatest version of ourselves?
Yeah, and you bring up such an important point. One of the reasons why a lot of us are unhappy is because we're not dealing with those things that bring us peace.
Right, right.
And I'm talking to myself as I say that. You know, I find peace in playing the flute. I really do. Once I start producing those tones and those frequencies, peace comes over me. And it's perfectly natural. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to try to make it happen. It just happens. And yet I don't do it as nearly as much as I should. Some of us, what happens in life is we get so bogged down with like different levels of responsibility. I have 5 children, so I have a whole lot of responsibility. Okay, my wife and I, we have 5 beautiful children. We homeschool our children, so we have a lot of responsibilities. We take care of their dietary needs. We're vegan. We make sure that they're eating properly. We make sure most definitely that they're loved. That's the key thing. So we have a lot of responsibilities, and what happens oftentimes as we get older, the more responsibilities we have, the less time we put into those things that bring us peace. And I'm speaking to myself as I say that.
Right.
For me in my journey, music has been fundamental for me. Meditation too. When I was in college, I used to spend a lot of time meditating. Meditation for me had more to do with me developing an ability to focus my mind, because part of finding peace is having the mental capacity to focus long enough to find the peace. The beautiful thing for me was that I can pick up a flute and like within 2 seconds I can find the peace, you know. But there's other times where if I don't have access to the flute, if something comes up, I have to find peace in other ways. And one of the ways is just to think about things on a certain level and change my orientation or my perspective on what it is that has brought me, discomfort. Focus, look at it from a different vantage point, and then I can find peace that way. But when I want to go back to one of the reasons why creativity, in essence, because this is a tool that anyone can use if they truly wish to find peace that would allow them to become something greater, is to really engage your creativity. When I was a child, music for me was really what allowed me to get through my childhood circumstances. I used to lock myself in the bathroom for like hours and I would practice. You know, I'm like, 10, 11 years old. Can you imagine 10 or 11 years old? And a lot of people thought that the reason why I was doing that was because like I had this love for music. And it wasn't so much that I loved music, I enjoyed it. It was that it brought me peace. So growing up in an abusive household, locking myself in the bathroom and just being with the flute and how the vibrations, everything would echo inside the bathroom. You close the door and everything would echo back to you. And it was like, it's just me and this sound. It's just me and this sound. And it was so, it just brought me so much peace when I was a child. The beautiful thing is that because I developed that skill of bringing myself peace through music, which is creativity, now as I'm older, like over the last 4 months, I've committed myself to practicing more. And as I practice, I've been more peaceful. As I
Right.
practice, I'm more loving to my children. As I practice, I've been more calm, which is good. Um, this is one of the avenues through which I've been able to develop peace in my life. And what people will find is that if you engage your creativity, whatever that may be, it can be writing a book, it can be doing infinite water videos, it can be, playing a guitar, it can be singing, it can be, arts and crafts. We provide that for our children a lot, or some kind of artistic expression. When you do those things that you really enjoy, it brings you peace. And peace is really the gateway to realizing your greater self.
That's wonderful. And we talk of just focusing on our inner journey as opposed to the distraction we're being bombarded with constantly. Many of us, we talk of how fast life can be. You've said it just now. And sometimes, because of this, we want to even escape even more into the wildness of it. And what I love about your work is that you talk about relationships and positive relationships with your wife, Aida. Fantastic. That's how it all starts, right? Through relationships and conscious parenting. So, what are some of the tools parents can use, and also people in relationships who are focusing and wanting to have children? How can they help raise geniuses that can love themselves? Because I say a lack of self-love is the root of all suffering.
Mm,
And when you love yourself 100%, that's where the magic takes place.
absolutely. Very well said. My wife and I, we've learned a lot over the last. We've been together for 13 years, but we had our first son when let's see, he's 10 now, so I think it was like about 3 years into our relationship. And since that time, we've given birth to 4 other children, so we have 5 altogether. The oldest is 10, the youngest turned 3 last. Was it this month or no? Last month. Or was it this month? I can't remember. We have so many babies and so many birthdays. Um, uh, so we've learned a lot over the last 10 years of parenting. And one of the most important things that for my wife, we understood early on that we had to make sure that we built an appropriate foundation for the relationship, because ultimately what's birthed out of relationships is a family institution. Even if there's no children involved, the fact that you're together with your mate, it is a family. And then ultimately, if you take it a step further, there's going to be children that are going to come onto the scene. And then your responsibility level and your love has to be taken to the next level. Like, I have this idea that there's different levels of love. Like, there's a love that people may feel early on in a relationship, and there's a love that you may feel a little bit later on. There's a whole nother love that you experience when you have children. It's just different levels of love. No level is more important than the other one or more significant, but just to understand, as you progress through this experience that we call love, you do realize that there's different levels of love, and there's also different levels of understanding that one may have about love. When you have those babies, love takes on a whole different dimension. So getting to your question, my wife and I, because we set a really good foundation for our relationship early on, parenting became a very natural occurrence. And one of the reasons why it became a very natural occurrence for us was because we were on the same page. And one of the reasons why we were on the same page was because we took the time early on to really get to know who we were, respectively. So not only did I get to know who she was and she got to know who I was, but I got to know who I was.
Right, right.
I think I posted this on my Facebook page today. Let me see if I can remember. I said, one of the major reasons why people fail in relationships is because they don't get to know their partner before they commit to the relationship.
Wow.
But wait, one of the reasons why people fail in relationships is because they do not get to know themselves before they commit to the relationship.
Powerful.
So one of the things that my wife, we have really engaged in this process of not only getting to know each other day by day, but also getting to know ourselves as we progress. And that really makes a difference. And what happens is if you know yourself, you know your mate, you can establish a positive relationship. It increases the probability that the relationship is going to be positive. And so then, therefore, when children come onto the scene, what happens is that because I've learned of my wife and she learned of me and I learned of myself and she learned of herself. So in essence, we knew ourselves and we knew each other. We were on the same page. And so what we experienced in terms of love was in line with that level of understanding. See, there is a wisdom that one must attain in order to experience higher levels of love. And then without that wisdom, there's only certain levels that you can really experience. But as you grow in love and with love, you realize that it just continues to expand. It's so expansive. It's like, the cosmos into infinity is what love is. So our understanding of it has to evolve as we progress and as our wisdom begins to progress. And one of the beautiful things about relationships is that if you do them right, you begin to see. It's like we were saying earlier, you want your vision back. I begin to see even deeper into what this thing that people call love is. And what happens is me and my wife, we experience this level of love and it's beautiful. But then when these babies start coming on the scene, all of the love that we share is now magnified. And now not only do we love each other, but now we love this new being that's on the planet too. And so we have to evolve and expand our conception of what love is and our expression of love to meet this new demand, because this baby needs love. And so we've done this 5 times now.
Wow.
So when it comes to parenting and conscious parenting, part of the success that one experiences is directly related to our understanding of what love is. And understanding what love is comes from a knowledge of self, but then also a knowledge of your mate. If you know yourself and you know your mate, you get on the same page. And so then when the babies start coming onto the scene, you're already on the same page. And if it's all done in love, then what you give to that child from the beginning, it's all rooted in love. And ideally, that's what we want to be able to provide for our children. If we want our children to experience a greater reality than what we experience, then we have to be prepared to give them the opportunity to experience something greater than what we experience. And I can say 100% at this moment that what my children are experiencing in terms of love far outweighs what I experienced growing up as a child. I'm writing the book now, Visions of Manhood, and I talk about my journey as a fatherless boy coming into manhood and becoming a husband and a father and the challenges associated with that. And I'm so thankful that I'm in a position today at the age of 38, about to be 39, to where I'm in my family's life. I'm in my children's life. I'm in my daughter's lives. I'm in my son's life. Every single day, I make breakfast, or at least for the last week, I make breakfast for my daughters right here on this table, and I put a candle out there. And I light the candle, and I sit them down, and they have... So today when they woke up, Daddy, we're going to bring the candle. Come like that. We didn't experience that growing up as children, my siblings and I. I put my daughters to bed every single night. We have this whole routine. I love you, baby. Oh, you're so beautiful. Have a good night's sleep. My sons, too. I put them to bed. I love you, sons. We do this thing where we grab each other's right arm, like right here, and we say, Kapla. This is from Star Trek, the Klingons. And it's basically like an affirmation, like saying peace, Kapla, good night, I love you, son. These types of things. This is conscious parenting. My wife and I, we make sure that love is the essence of what we do. And as a consequence, I can say at 100% certainty that what my children are experiencing is blessed. And I'm so thankful for that, because what it allows them to maintain their genius. Because we all come onto the planet as geniuses, but it allows them to maintain their genius, because that is what love does. If you give someone love, they will experience not only the genius of love, but their own genius. And that's precisely what we've done with our children. Through love, we've managed to preserve their genius, and they are just miraculous beings already. And I can't wait 20 years down the line to see what they become.
That's wonderful. And what I love about your work is that it's so versatile. You talk about positive relationships, healthy food, you're a vegan, but also what I love about your work is the subconscious mind. You're an expert on that. And as much as I love also to talk about the inner and being positive, but at the same time, like Carl Jung said, you have to also dive into areas which may not be so positive to become illuminated in the first place, because a lot of us, we don't even know how we are subliminally programmed from the news, the media. And a lot of this stuff has been the most empowering stuff for me to help me love myself. When you realize the game that's being played, if you can decode it, now you become even more empowered, because this is a big game of manipulation and there is so much information we're unaware of. But you have laid it so clear in your documentaries. I love the Star Trek, the Borg agenda. This is epic work, you see. Please talk about how to protect the subconscious mind.
Yes, and that's so important. That is so very important. Um, Most of us, when we're born, we operate based upon our subconscious minds. It's not until we reach a particular age to where the conscious mind begins to kick in, and there's a difference between the subconscious and the conscious. In particular, the subconscious mind is not aware of time, past, present, and future. It doesn't perceive time in that sense. The conscious mind is aware of past, present, and future. The subconscious mind tends to look at things and try to draw correlations between things that may not necessarily be, that may not necessarily at first appear to have a correlation. So it's always trying to connect things together, which is a powerful thing. Whereas the conscious mind tends to try to analyze things in compartments. This is here, this is there, this is there. The conscious mind, its primary objective is to solve problems in the defined, undefined elements. So whenever we have a problem, it takes usually the conscious mind approaches it to where it's trying to solve it, and if it can't solve it, we begin to experience psychological trauma, and as a consequence, that's when the subconscious mind kicks in and submerges that particular trauma. I'll talk about this inside one of my books. Submerges that subconscious trauma, and in taking that trauma and that unsolved problem or undefined element, taking it down into the subconscious mind, now your conscious mind can move forward without having to feel as if there's all these problems that are unsolved. It's like a psychological defense mechanism so that we don't continue to traumatize ourselves whenever we're faced with a challenge or faced with a problem that we can't solve. But getting more deeper into the question, since so many of us, when we come onto the planet, we operate based upon our subconscious mind, the subconscious mind absorbs everything, and it absorbs everything to such a degree to where we don't even have to think about it consciously. And that's why children, they tend to pick up things so easily. They learn things at a rate because they're mainly operating based upon the subconscious mind. They learn things at a rate that is phenomenal. It's ingenious. And it can be preserved, too, if you maintain a certain level of balance between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And a lot of us, that's the primary time where we received a lot of the negative programming from media in particular. And in some cases from our family. The environments that we're born into, we get a lot of toxic and negative ideas about self. We begin to develop low levels of self-esteem, self-worth, and self-value, because a lot of that programming is being received and is going directly into the subconscious mind. What I have learned is that at a certain point, once we become aware of the manipulation and we become aware that it has impacted the subconscious mind, because what happens is that all the programming begins to express itself on some level in our daily life. So let me give you an example. I've done consultations with people who they have it in they have a subconscious programming, and they believe that no matter what they do, their relationship is going to fail. And so ultimately, this subconscious belief, which is a core belief system, influences their choices in terms of male-female relationships. So they will go out and unconsciously or subconsciously seek out relationships that will ultimately fail. Right. Not because that's what they want, but because that is a subconscious belief. So even though they may want a positive relationship, they go and they choose the person that is going to bring to them a negative relationship, because they have developed over the years this belief, subconscious belief, that ultimately they're going to fail in male-female relationships. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in essence. So what I found is that if one wishes to break that particular program, because it does become a program, one has to begin to look at their beliefs and then begin to look at where did those beliefs come from. And in particular, where does the belief come from for anyone to begin to think that somehow, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to experience a positive relationship? That's right. A serious program. And I can say that for me, I've gone through the process, and I'm still going through the process, especially as I write this book. I have to go back and look at a lot of the experiences that I had when I was a child that went directly into my subconscious mind, and analyze those experiences so that I can understand why it is that I'm making the choices that I'm making that make absolutely no conscious sense today.
Right. And also a positive experience of life. You see, a lot of us, we feel we can't be anything because that programming. And when you almost unlock the secrets and the magical codes, you realize, actually, I can do anything. It's all a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a mindset. It's a mindset of success. It's also a mindset of just understanding that we have the power to experience something greater. And it reminds me, what comes to mind is like if you take an animal and you put him in a cage and it stays in that cage for the first 5 years of its life, you may open up the door to that cage, but the animal might not ever think that there's anything outside the cage, may not even try to attempt to escape or to get out or to look, poke its head out or anything. But because it's experienced a particular reality that's limited, it begins to think in a limited way. And a lot of us, these are the programs that we receive from an early age. As another example, in terms of programming that we receive, like when I was growing up, one of the programs that in the United States of America that was very prevalent was the criminalization of males who look like me. In other words, there was a lot of television shows, there was a lot of movies that portrayed males who looked like me as gangbangers, thugs, drug addicts, this type of thing. And, I had a lot of friends who saw the television shows and watched the movies, and they began to take on that persona. It wasn't who they were. It was who someone else was saying that they were. But they began to adopt it. The programming was being accepted into the subconscious mind, and then ultimately begins to play itself out into their everyday behavior, their conception of who they are. And really what it did was it put them in a cage of possibility. A cage of possibility is slavery.
That's right.
How you gonna have possibilities and you're trapped inside this small cage based upon what someone else told you you're about? What it means to be a man is this and this and this. No, that's not what it means to be a man. It's deeper than that. What does it mean to be a good human being is this, this, and this. You got to have, a fancy car. You got to have, a PhD. You got to have, the latest tech gadgets. You got to have, this is what it means to be. Okay, is there more to this human experience than that? So a lot of us, we were put inside these very confining boxes. And for me, what I had to do was, and even to this day, I have to look at the programming that I received and see whether or not, consciously, whether or not it's still impacting my behavior, my thoughts and ideas, what I perceive to be possible in my life. And that's one of the things that I encourage everyone to do, regardless of where you're at in life, is to look at your whole life experience in essence. And take stock and look at the types of ideas, thoughts and ideas that you received when you were a child, and look and ask the question, are any of these thoughts or ideas, are they influencing me in a negative way? Are they causing me to think that somehow I cannot experience a greater life experience, that I cannot become something greater? And people will be amazed at how much programming we still have, no matter how old we are, that really constricts us and restricts us in certain ways. But it doesn't mean that we can't overcome the programming. That's what you call breaking the programming. And it's doable, and I'm doing it, and I continue to do it every single day.
Right. Well, I see you as a powerful inspiration in really not being afraid to stand by your truth. And when we talk of manifesting a greater reality, a lot of people won't homeschool their children, not because they don't want to, but because they have a fear of what other people might think. How do we even get past that programming? I'm sure you've had it where you've got family members poking their nose into your business. How do you still stand in your truth and still live from your heart space, as opposed to just conforming to the world around you? Because I know it's not easy.
It can be a challenge, but it's well worth the challenge. It really is. And you use the term living from your heart space. I think that that's key, because when you live from your heart space, you're living your truth. And for me, it really comes down to that. Is this true? Is raising my children, is it true? I want people to think about that. It sounds strange to even say that, but really think about that. Is it true to what? Is homeschooling my children, is it true? True to what? Is it true to this idea and notion of love? And I can tell you all that it is definitely true to the notion of love. My wife and I, we've had a lot of resistance because of the choices that we've made. We've had so much resistance, not only from family members, friends, but also over the internet. But I have a saying, and that is that time always tells the truth. That if we're patient enough, and if we're willing to seek truth, not necessarily belief, but if we're willing to seek truth, time will show us the truth, and it will be clearly evident. And I can tell you all that it is clearly evident in my children that doing what we're doing for them with the homeschooling, it is a blessing. It is a gift unto our children. I grew up in a public education system. My wife did too. And it was not a hospitable place, and it was not a place that ultimately realized internal genius. In point of fact, a lot of us, that's where we lost our internal genius, and then we spend the rest of our life trying to find it. Well, just imagine, what if our parents said, hey, wait a minute, you know what? I know that's the standardized norm, and I know that's what everyone else is doing, but let's do something different. Let us preserve our children's genius. Let us give to them what they need based upon our understandings of their needs, their intellectual needs, if you will. And as we teach them, let's love them too. And let's do this every single day, Monday through Monday. Let's do this every single day throughout the year, no spring break, no summer break, every single day. This is what we do. And what we found is that the level of intellectual progressions that are present in our children, time has told the truth. And remarkably, what happens is a lot of the people who had reservations about our decisions not to vaccinate, not to circumcise my sons, there's no way that I would ever do that. I will circumcise, but there's no way that I'm going to cut a piece of my son's penis off. And somehow that's reasonable or logical or rooted in love. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. When we say, you know, is it true? Is that true to love? No, that's not true. To cut your son, a piece of your child's penis off when the child is first born, that's not rooted in love. So, okay, we may get resistance from people because we didn't vaccinate, because we didn't circumcise our sons, or because we homeschool, because we don't eat the fast food. We may get the resistance, but ultimately time tells the truth. So a lot of the people who took issues with us and had all types of disparaging things to say, now when they see our children, when they see our family institution, when they see the positive relationship that we've had for the last 13 years, they have no recourse but to admit the truth that what we have done was the right thing to do for our children. Now, I should say that it's not for everyone. It depends on your situation and circumstance. But if you want to do the best for your children, you have to consider thinking outside of the socialized norms, especially as it relates to how your children are going to be educated, how your children are going to be cared for in terms of their health, many different levels. And I should also mention that for those of y'all, if you have your children in the public education system, make up for the difference. What this means is that when they come home, spend time with your babies. Don't get on Facebook, on Twitter, and have your children run around the house and you're just on the internet, or don't do that. Or watching television, do something constructive, positive with your children, because that time goes by so quickly. And what will happen is that if you don't take the time, when your child becomes 14 or 15, you're going to look at your child and they're going to look at you and they're going to say, you're going to say to them, I don't know you. And they're going to say to you, I don't know you either. And that is not the truth as it relates to love. The love has to do, especially when it comes to parenting, you have to know self and you have to know your babies. And in knowing yourself, you'll know what you can provide for your babies. And in knowing your babies, you'll know what needs to be provided for them. And in the end, time always tells the truth. And I stand by that. And that's precisely why I can stand by my truth, because I know that time will ultimately prove that what my wife and I are doing, it is in the best interest of our children. And if a parent can say that this is in the best interest of my children, then that's what you go with. Don't necessarily have to be concerned yourself with what other people have to say or what other people's fears are. Because a lot of times their fears about what the choices that you're making, that's their fear, not yours. Let them have their fear. You just do what you know is right. And that's precisely what my wife and I, we continue to do.
Well, I can see it's wonderful. It's just, I see that a lot of us, we are searching for happiness, the pursuit of happiness. But in the process, by the time we get what we want, everything has changed. Certain friends have gone. They're not there to celebrate with us. We see people's true colors, and even ourselves, it may not be what we expect, because not everything that glitters is gold. When we talk of personal growth and manifesting a greater reality, what is for you the secret of happiness? Because this is what everyone is after.
In my journey, I've learned that the secret of happiness is to recognize that happiness ultimately is a choice. And I think that that's a very empowered position, because, in other words, it's up to the individual to make the choice to be happy. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Because I know that sounds simple, but for me, it's so true. It is a choice. one person, you can give them a cup of water and it makes them happy because they're thirsty. So they drink the water. Oh, and it's so good. It's cool, it's refreshing, and they find happiness. But you can take the same cup of water and give it to someone else, and they just drunk a whole bunch of water. They're not thirsty. In point of fact, they don't want to drink any more water. If they drink any more, it's going to make them upset. It's going to make their stomach upset because they just drank. It's just too much. You give them a cup of water, it's the same water, same purity, and it's so wonderful. You give it to them. Oh, I can't stand this water. What do you mean? It's the same water. I can't stand it. It makes me unhappy. Why? Because happiness is a choice.
Right, right. Well,
And
it's
see,
simple but powerful.
it's so
Yeah.
true. So depending on a person's orientation and what they're experiencing, this is what you were alluding to earlier. Depending on what they're searching for and what they need at any given time, what they perceive to be happiness is going to be different. So therefore, in my journey, what I've learned is that we just simply have to make the choice, whatever we're given at any given time, whether we want the water or not, whether or not water is warm or hot water or cold water, or maybe it's not so tasty, but it's still water that, may be beneficial for us on some level. We can still find happiness in the fact that we have the cup in our hand. See, this can be applied to any area of our life. Whatever life deals us, whether it's what we may perceive it to be positive or we may even perceive it to be negative in that moment, we can still make a choice to be happy. And in this sense, the power always resides within us. It's not so much about the circumstances or what someone else is doing to us or what someone else, the cup, or the type of cup that they've given us or whether or not we're thirsty or not. It has nothing to do with that. It's accepting what it is that we are receiving at any given time and recognizing that we can make the choice to be happy. That's a very empowering place to be.
Well, I absolutely love that. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule because your work is phenomenal. Lenon and I go back a long time, and it's just great to see your evolution in your journey, how your family are progressing, and lastly, just leave the Infinite Waters family with any advice that you want to leave us with
Well,
in
yeah,
manifesting a greater reality for future generations.
yes. And I just want to go back to my children here because ultimately, for me and my wife, it is about what we are doing for our children. I remember when I met you in person, I said something, and I'm going to say it again because I really do believe this. I remember it was time to go, and I said, yeah, let me get back to these babies. I got to head on out. I got to get back to these babies. And for any of y'all watching this, I was blessed to meet Brother Ralph in California. He happened to be where were you at anyway? Venice?
Venice.
That sounds about right. But he's in Venice, right? And I happened to be in Los Angeles during the same time. I was doing a lecture out there, and after the lecture, I was able to meet up with Ralph. And so I had a wonderful time with the brother. I love you, brother. I love you as a human being, as a being beyond human too. Okay.
Likewise.
We had such a wonderful time. We talked. Your wonderful wife, she cooked. I had some wonderful meal. I had to say wife, okay. And we had a fantastic time. And when it was time to go, I said, okay, brother, let me get on this road because I got to get back to these babies, so I can tuck them in and make sure that they are adequately prepared for their good night's sleep. And I said something to the effect that I'm doing this because I want my children to someday be like you. Talking about Ralph Smart. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, like Ralph said, we've known each other for many years now. And as I've watched this brother progress, I have been so inspired. I mean, it's changed my direction in terms of my work by watching just the level of positivity and the sincerity. Because you'll find that there are a lot of people doing this type of work who are not quite sincere, but this brother is a genuine human being. He's otherworldly in a sense. It's like one of the people's like, is he from this? I'm saying all this to say that just imagine if all of our parents thought that way, to wherein all of our parents said, I want to make sure that I do whatever it needs to be done so that my children can become, as Ralph would put it, the greatest versions of themselves. Where would we be as a species? And where would this planet be? Where would we all be collectively as a species if that was the orientation? And so I just want to leave that with everyone, that whether you have children or not, that's not even the point. If you have children, make sure you do what you can so that they won't have to wait like I did until I was about 28, 29 years old and begin to ask the question, how do I get my vision back? So many of us, that was our journey. We get to a certain age and then we have to start this journey to really trying to discover self. Well, what if our parents allowed us to know ourselves and preserved our genius from the beginning? How far, much further along will we be? So I want people to be clear, even if you don't have children, treat yourself like your own child. Give to yourself what you need to become your greatest self, or what Ralph would say, your greatest version, the greatest version of yourself. Treat yourself with that level of kindness and give to yourself in the way that you as a child would have loved to have been given to. And I have a sense that if we all did that, and if we did it long enough, it may take a couple of millennia, but if we all did that enough, that this species would be perceived as a remarkable, blessed, in-tuned, spiritual, loving species in the cosmos. And this is when we get back to a place that I hope my children will help people to get back to, which Ralph is most definitely helping the species to get back to. And that is a place wherein we are respected again as a species in the cosmos. I call it cosmic respectability. And I also want to say, brother, I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to speak with you. And you know I love you dearly, and I'm so thankful that I'm on the planet while Ralph Smart is on the planet.
Likewise, I love you too, and I'm so thankful Lenon Honor is on the planet, because you awakened my eyes so much in the early journeys, even today, to this present moment. And I just love seeing the evolution of your work. And sometimes you might feel, okay, my early work, it's all relative, because that is phenomenal work too. Never discard that work, because like I always say, it's all connected. You know, everyone is coming from a different angle. The inner is important, but also your whole work on decoding, that stuff is powerful. That stuff in itself is a masterpiece. And I feel sometimes, because whenever you put something out there, people may say stuff, but you really created a storm. I would say you are a pioneer of this awakening movement in such a powerful way. You created those ripples which are creating the tidal wave to awaken people to a higher consciousness right now on the planet.
Well, thank you. Well, it's been part of the journey. And I've grown, I've watched you grow, and I want everyone else just keep growing. And of course, if you want to continue to be inspired, you head on over, and you're already on there right now viewing this, but you stay tuned to Infinite Waters on YouTube.
Well,
work.
Everyone check out Lenon Honor's YouTube channel. He's here on YouTube. His website, www.lenonhonor.com. He has great books as well. It is wonderful to have you. Much love to you and the family. And dive with us again. We are here, Infinite Waters, diving deep once again. Stay well. Stay healthy. Peace.